With the San Francisco 49ers reporting to training camp today, I thought this would be the perfect time to go ahead and make a bold prediction for a final 53-man roster. Let's go ahead and take a look at this, and we'll start off with the offense first. Quarterbacks, we're probably going to have three: Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, and Josh Rosen. Although the 49ers invested heavily in the trade up for Lance, Garoppolo is going to enter training camp as a starting quarterback. How long he's able to hold on to that position, though, is going to depend almost entirely on Trey Lance's development. The other competition at quarterback will be between Josh Rosen and Nate Sudfeld. Neither are signed past this season, but it's likely that one or both could be in the 49ers' plans depending on how well they perform. While Rosen had flamed out during previous stops in Arizona, Miami, and Tampa Bay, he is still a better quarterback than Sudfeld and should show that during training camp. Running back, will be five of those: Raheem Mostert, rookie Trey Sermon, Wayne Gallman, rookie Elijah Mitchell, and of course fullback Kyle Juszczyk. Mostert will be the starting running back, but things are going to be interesting behind him. Trey Sermon and Wayne Gallman are both bruising runners that should help to wear down defenses. However, Sermon's history suggests that he'll be better off the bench given his performance in college at Oklahoma and Ohio State. With the Sooners and Buckeyes, Sermon was often capable of hitting a big run right off the bench, whereas Gallman seemed to be better the more he touched the ball during his time in New York. Mitchell's power, both inside and out, along with his ability as a receiver, will help him earn the final roster spot over JaMycal Hasty. Wide receiver will be taking six at that position. They're going to be Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Richie James, Mohamed Sanu, Juwan Jennings, and Jalen Hurd. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and Richie James are the easy predictions for the 49ers at wide receiver. Mohamed Sanu will likely make the roster after impressing the coaching staff during OTAs. His ability to provide veteran leadership to a position room that is very young also plays into his favor. Jalen Hurd will not be starting training camp on the PUP list. That's big, and will be brought along slowly during training camp. The plan, according to Kyle Shanahan, is to have Hurd doing only individual work over the course of the first week of training camp. If Hurd somehow is not healthy, look for River Craycraft or Trent Sherfield to battle for that final roster position due to their abilities on special teams. At tight end, four there: George Kittle, Ross Belly, Michael Pruitt, and Charlie Warner. There isn't much of a competition at tight end, with only five on the roster currently, and the 49ers usually keeping four. Michael Pruitt has a $500,000 roster guarantee, which would seem to ensure his spot, but he could be competing for the spot on the final 46-man game day roster with Charlie Warner. The two would appear to be battling for a similar role to how Shanahan utilized Garrett Selleck, the blocking tight end that can do some damage in the passing game when called upon. And then rounding out the offense with the most important group, the offensive linemen. There'll be eight there: Trent Williams, Laken Tomlinson. On the left side, Alex Mack at center, Aaron Banks at right guard, and Michael McGlinchey at right tackle, with Colt McKivitz, Daniel Brunskill, and Jalen Moore backing them up. The only competition for a starting spot on the offensive line is going to feature Banks and Brunskill vying to be the starter at right guard. Assuming that Banks wins out, look for Brunskill to focus most of his time on center to ensure better depth behind veteran Alex Mack. Colton McKivitz has shown the ability to play both guard and tackle and will need to fend off Sean Coleman for the swing tackle role. You might remember that Coleman opted out of 2020, and he hasn't played since he suffered a dislocated ankle and broken fibula during the first preseason game of 2019. Now let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. First off, defensive linemen, look for them to take 9 at that spot. And the players will be Nick Bosa, Javon Kinlaw, DJ Jones, Eric Armstead, Arden Key, Zach Kerr, Stenson Ebicom, Kevin Givens, and Dee Ford. That's right, Dee Ford. Just last week, Fred Warner said of Dee Ford, "He looks great. He's back." And today was John Lynch delivering the news that Ford would not start training camp on the PUP list and that the team was cautiously optimistic. According to Lynch, Ford will be focusing on individual work for about the first week of camp and not taking part in team drills. A healthy Dee Ford would create too many potential defensive line combinations to fit them all here, and would put the 49ers pass rush squarely in the discussion for the best in the NFL. The interior of the defensive line, well, that might be the deepest that has ever been in San Francisco. The 49ers hope to see big improvement, though, in that area from Javon Kinlaw as he goes into year 2 of his pro career. At linebacker, 49ers usually take 5, but this year I have them taking 4. And those are going to be Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Azeez Al-Shaair, and James Burgess. The core of the linebacker group is obviously Warner and Greenlaw. Al-Shaair, though, did a good job as a third starter a season ago after the 49ers traded Quan Alexander to New Orleans, and he'll compete with Burgess for that starting Sam linebacker role. Both Al-Shaair and Burgess will be expected to contribute heavily on special teams as well. An additional piece to look for here is how the 49ers have shown the tendency to use safeties as a third linebacker at times. You may recall in 2017, they utilized Eric Reid in this role, and even last year, they did it with Marcel Harris, moving him down into the box against teams that were more dependent on the passing game. Harris could reprise that role again this season. In fact, during the first day of practice, he actually was doing some work with the linebackers there, or look to rookie Talanoa Hufanga to get onto the field this way. The 5th-round draft pick did this often during his time at USC and looks to be a perfect fit there if called upon. Defensive back, they're going to be taking 10. And those will be Jason Verrett, Emmanuel Moseley, Quan Williams, Jaquiski Tartt, Jimmy Ward, Ambry Thomas, Deommodore Lenoir, along with Tony Jefferson, previously mentioned Talanoa Hufanga, and Tavon Wilson. The question in the secondary is basically are the starters going to be able to stay healthy, and who's going to be backing up at safety? Although they're rookies, Ambry Thomas and Deommodore Lenoir will likely be the primary backups at cornerback, with Thomas possibly backing up Williams in the slot as well. Emmanuel Moseley being forced to miss the start of training camp due to be placed on the reserve COVID-19 list will mean additional reps for Thomas, which could help the rookie close the gap towards a starting position. Veterans Tony Jefferson and Tavon Wilson will likely be the primary backups with safety and could push Marcel Harris off the roster completely. Finally, the specialists, Robbie Gould, Mitch Wishnowsky, and Tabor Pepper. The only question surrounding the 49ers special teams is who will be returning kicks, especially kickoffs. In 2020, San Francisco fell to 29th in the league in kickoff return average, only 19.3 yards per return. One explanation for this could be the move to utilize Jerick McKinnon as a primary return option instead of Richie James Jr. On the way to the Super Bowl in 2019, it was James who was returning all the kickoffs, and he averaged 21.4 yards per attempt, including a long of 81 yards. Let's see how the roster is going to look. Let me know your predictions in the comments.